Hello, creative! Do you know how to create an amazing design with an accessible text? If you don't, or if you are curious about it, don't worry, because on this video I gotta tell you a lot of things, like for development. I will talk even about color and contrast. By the end I will give you some tips. But before we start, I must tell you that I am Maiane, a Brazilian graphic designer, and this video has a sponsorship from Adobe, from the Adobe XD Residency Fund. If you want more details, then you can check in the description. And on this video, I will be showing one more thing about the accessibility, because in this entire series, I have been showing the entire process of creating an UI accessibility kit. So if you want to know more about it, keep hearing, keep watching, watch these videos here, and follow me on Instagram and other social networks. But for us to start, let's go to computer. And here I am with the Adobe XD already opened. And as you can see, I have put there all these headings and font sizes and font family. And why had I done that? This is because it's a really good practice if you can provide to your developer these titles already the way they must be. For example, when a developer want to create a website, then he will just open the program when he will start to create your website, and it will look somehow like this. And on the website, he will create these titles. This H1, H2, H3, H4, each one of these is one title that HTML already provides to them. So this is the reason that you have to provide to the developer these titles either the way I have done here, like the font size, the font you want to use, the font for the paragraph, and of course, if you can provide more font size, like for subtitles, for quotes, the more you provide, the better it will be for the developer when he goes through the code, because the designer must be responsible for developing a good guideline about text. And you must inform to our developer how do you want the text to be, just like here. For example, I have set the head one, which is just like this. So the developer have the H1, and you have put there, I want the head one to use the Open Sans family, all of that use the Open Sans family, and I want it as the font size as 2.5 rem. What is that? Why the developer must use rem? What the hell is this thing? Don't worry. REM is a pattern that developers can use in order to create a more accessible website, a more responsive website. Because you could, for example, use pixels, just like I had put here, like pixels, or REM. But you must talk to your developer something like this. Please use REM, because this way the text will be more adaptive and will be much more accessible. Because when you use a text like that, what happens is that the paragraph is what sets the size of the font of the entire website. And the 1 rem, it means that 1 rem is the same as 16 pixels for the paragraph, for the font size of the entire document. When you use rem, you will define just one font size, the body text size, which for us is the paragraph, and it's 16 pixels. And also you provide to your developer the 16 pixel size for the body, and he defines on the code, he can put something like this: font size 2.5 rem, or heading font size 2 rem. Just like I have done here, like font size 1.25 rem, and it means that the font is relative to the body size text. For example, if the paragraph is 16 pixels, and the heading tool is 2 RENs, it means that the heading tool will have 32 pixels, which is the double of the paragraph. This way, if someone puts zoom on the web page, or if they are using smaller screens like smartphones, it will be easier to adapt your text into the context of the entire screen. So this is why it's really important for you to talk to your developer. Say something like that. Please use REM because I need it to be adaptive. And of course, don't use ridiculous font size on the paragraph, on the body size. I recommend using something like 16 pixels. You don't have to use this size, but these are some common sizes. I have taken from the Bootstrap, which is a really famous framework, and all web developers are using it. So it's secure to use this kind of size. But I recommend you to use your paragraphs like 16 or bigger on desktop. On mobile, they can start on 12 or something related. But you can provide more context and talk to your developer because this way you can provide a better experience in the entire process of building your website. Well, the second thing I must talk to you is about color and contrast. You must take care about color and contrast. And I gotta show you why. This is a website which measures color and contrast. It shows who can use your websites based on the colors you are using, on the size of the font you are using. And if you remember the video I have already done about WCAG, the color contrast is very important. If you don't remember, I will leave the card somewhere so you can click on it, or on description so you can check it later. But for us, how can I use this website? Who can use? It's pretty simple. You can put here like the background, for example. Oh, I want this background, which is the color I use the most on my creatives. And here I have this color, the white. And it's saying that the contrast is AAA, which is the best contrast you need to achieve. If you have a AAA, it's perfect. This is what you are looking for. But you can also work with a AA, but I recommend you to try the AAA. And here you can play with all kinds of colors and text. And I highly recommend you to play with this tool because it's very useful and it's very easy to use in order to find good colors to use on your website. And for example, this is a AAA, but you can try other things and see what happens. For example, if I just put the slider, this will fail hardly and no one will be able to read it. Even me, it's so hard to read. Now it's easier, but if I don't highlight it, it will be really hard. So I encourage you to play with that, to learn what works, what don't. And of course, try the color you want to choose in different kind of situations. Try on white screen, on black screen, because sometimes you want to use just one color for everything, and maybe this color doesn't work good on white or doesn't look good on dark screen. So try as much as you can. Try and play with that because it's also really fun. There is another cool tip about color, and I gotta show you that on Adobe XD, which is this tip here. Prefer to use opacity instead of gray colors. Why is that? This tip I had seen on the material design from Google, and this is what happens when you use the gray color, and this is what happens when you use opacity. I gotta show you better on Adobe XD. If I remove these backgrounds and I put it side by side, it's the same color, as you can see, like here. It's pretty much the same gray. But when I put the backgrounds again, they just seem different because this gray is not really gray. This is black with opacity, something like 70% opacity. And all of these are the same gray and the same opacity. And this one is pure gray. And when in contrast with different backgrounds, you can see what happens is that the gray turns out to be really weird depending on the background. If you use opacity instead of gray, it can work better in different kind of backgrounds, different kind of contrast, and if the user decides to change the color, they will have a better experience. So this is the reason you must use opacity instead of gray. So this was another tip, and don't forget to tell to your developer that you rather use opacity than the gray, because if they doesn't know, maybe they will just use the gray. They don't have the need to check your entire website in order to know if you are using gray or opacity, all this kind of stuff. You must provide them this information, okay? And by the end, as I had promised, I will tell you some other cool tips, and one of them, and it's very, very, very important, prefer the common families, the common font families, because if you start using this decorative and full of curves and crazy fonts, probably they will be really, really hard to read, and no one will. It will be hard for everybody, even for us who don't have any kind of disability. So I highly recommend you to use the common families like Open Sans, Railway, Helvetica, Times New Roman, and all of these typographs that you have heard a lot about, like Source Sans, and ask your developer what are the fonts that are already available on the web browser, because this way you can assure that it will be easier for the browser to read your font and to load it and to render your website. So this is a good tip, so to pay attention to it. But then you will ask, so I can't even use a Comic Sans? Well, take care, because there is one important point about Comic Sans. And I don't know if you have already heard about, but as far as are concerned, there are a lot of articles and so on who says that Comic Sans is pretty good for people with dyslexia. I don't know how to say that in English, or dyslexia, whatever. What they say is that the font has some things like more spacing and more weight on the characters, and this makes font easier for people with dyslexia to read. And I have found that there is this Open Dyslexia, which is a font that was developed for people who have dyslexia. So I recommend you to check it if you are working with this kind of disability. And for us to end, the last but not least important tip: always test with different kind of people. Try to find who are your focus, but try to find the users who have disabilities, who have some kind of problem, maybe older people either, and try or people with visibility issues. So try to test with a lot of different people, like colorblinds and deafs, who knows. Try as much as you can, because as much as you try and do developing based on tests, the better will be your design. So for today, this is it. I hope you have liked. Please subscribe if you liked. Don't worry about my bad English, because I'm getting better. I gotta be an English native soon, I hope. Follow along on Instagram, on YouTube, leave your comments, and let's build it together. Thank you.